Every autumn, billions of bags of leaves are collected, sealed, and sent to landfill sites around the world. And garden centers, knowing exactly what those leaves could become, quietly sell the same material back, processed, rebranded, and priced at $15 a bag. The leaves rotting in landfills right now are not waste. They are one of the most powerful soil amendments ever studied, and the method to transform them costs absolutely nothing. What's buried in that pile on the lawn is the same substance that has kept forests alive, without fertilizer, without intervention, for millions of years. In the next few minutes, the full process will be laid out, not just how to make this material, but why it nearly disappeared from common knowledge entirely, and who benefits from keeping it that way. There is a reason this technique isn't featured in mainstream gardening magazines. There's a reason the fertilizer aisle keeps growing while soil quality in home gardens keeps declining. Once the mechanics of what happens inside a simple pile of leaves are understood, the entire logic of the commercial soil amendment industry starts to look very different. The raw material is already there. It falls from the trees every year. The only question is whether it ends up in a landfill or in the garden where it belongs. Walk into any ancient forest, the kind that has never been tilled, never been fertilized, never had a human hand add a single amendment. Dig down past the surface layer of leaves. What's underneath is extraordinary. Dark, almost black earth that smells faintly sweet, loose and crumbly in the hand, teeming with life. It took no one's intervention to create it. For centuries, farmers and gardeners, particularly across Europe, understood this instinctively. They collected forest floor material, what they called leaf mold, and worked it into their plots. In England, the right to collect fallen leaves from common land was even enshrined in law. It was standard practice, passed down through generations, requiring no purchase, no chemical, no outside input. Then, in the mid-20th century, something shifted. The post-war chemical industry, flush with surplus nitrogen compounds originally developed for wartime, needed a new market. Agriculture was the answer. Within a generation, synthetic fertilizers became the default, and the ancient practice of building soil from leaf matter was quietly replaced by an annual cycle of purchasing packaged products. What took millennia to develop as common knowledge was largely abandoned in under 50 years. Grandparents who kept leaf piles in the corner of the garden were considered old-fashioned. The bags of commercial compost at the garden center were considered progress. The knowledge survived in the hands of serious horticulturalists, in estate garden records, in university soil science departments. But it was no longer mainstream, and that gap between what was known and what was practiced is exactly what the soil amendment industry grew to fill. The process is called leaf mold, not compost, something fundamentally different. Standard hot composting is driven by bacteria. It requires heat, regular turning, moisture management, and a carefully balanced ratio of nitrogen-rich green material to carbon-rich brown material. Done correctly, it produces a nutrient-dense finished product, but it demands constant attention, and even experienced composters lose batches to imbalance. Leaf mold is driven by fungi, and fungi operate on entirely different terms. They need no heat, no turning, no precise ratios. They need leaves, consistent moisture, and time. That is the complete list of requirements. Inside the pile, white threads of mycelium, the root network of fungi, spread through the leaf mass. These threads produce enzymes that break down cellulose and lignin, the structural compounds that make leaves stiff and resistant. No other organism does this more efficiently in a cool, aerobic environment. The result, after 6 to 12 months depending on leaf type and climate, is a dark, crumbly, earthy-smelling material. It contains fewer nutrients than finished compost, but its real value lies elsewhere entirely. Finished leaf mold improves a soil's water-holding capacity dramatically. It opens up clay soils that suffocate roots. It stabilizes sandy soils that drain before plants can drink. It feeds earthworm populations, which in turn restructure the soil further. And its effects persist for years, not weeks. That is the first payoff, a material that costs nothing to produce, that solves two opposite soil problems simultaneously, and that gets better the longer it's left to work. The process is straightforward enough that anyone who can rake leaves can do it. Start by collecting leaves and shredding them before piling. Running a lawnmower over them once is enough. Smaller fragments give the fungal threads far more surface area to colonize. This single step cuts the waiting time roughly in half. Choose a shaded location for the pile. Direct sun dries the surface faster than the fungi can tolerate. A north-facing corner, the shade of a hedge, or the canopy of a tree all work well. Moisture is the engine of this process. Everything else is secondary. Build the pile and test it by squeezing a handful. The target is the feel of a wrung-out sponge, damp through and through, but not dripping. A simple ring of chicken wire keeps the pile contained and holds moisture better than a loose heap, but an open pile produces identical results. One type of leaf to avoid: black walnut. All parts of the tree contain juglone, a compound that can inhibit sensitive plants, with the highest concentrations in the roots, husks, and buds. Eucalyptus leaves also contain oils that may suppress certain crops. Everything else, including oak, maple, beech, and hornbeam, is suitable. Then leave it alone. Leaf mold does not need turning. The fungal mycelium builds networks through the pile, and disturbing them repeatedly breaks what they have built and slows decomposition significantly. Check moisture every few weeks. If the pile has become heavily compacted, a gentle loosening restores airflow, which the fungi need to continue working. Otherwise, the process runs itself. Partially broken down leaf mold after 3 months makes excellent mulch around shrubs and perennials, suppressing weeds while continuing to decompose into the soil beneath. After 6 months, it can be mixed directly into vegetable beds before planting. Root vegetables especially benefit from the improved structure. Tomatoes, peppers, and squash develop noticeably stronger root systems. Blended with garden soil in roughly equal parts, it produces a potting mix that matches the performance of commercial alternatives at a fraction of the cost. For seed starting, adding a measure of coarse sand creates a light, free-draining medium that seedlings respond to with vigor. Spread as a thin top dressing across a lawn in autumn, it filters down into the turf over winter, improving soil structure season by season without a single synthetic input. The process can be accelerated by inoculating a new pile with a handful of finished leaf mold or ordinary garden soil, introducing the active fungal community from the start. Occasional thin layers of grass clippings add nitrogen and speed breakdown, provided they are mixed through rather than laid in solid sheets, which turn anaerobic and shut down the fungal process. Here is an uncomfortable question worth sitting with. If leaf mold is this effective, this cheap, and this easy to produce, why is it not on the first page of every gardening guide? The answer is not complicated. What cannot be packaged cannot be sold. What cannot be sold is not promoted. And what is not promoted gradually vanishes from common practice, replaced by products that generate revenue every single season. The soil amendment market is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Bags of compost, bottles of liquid feed, slow-release fertilizer pellets, all of them solve problems that a functioning, biologically active soil would solve on its own. The model depends on soil that needs intervention, soil that needs a product. Every autumn, municipal collection services across the world gather millions of tons of fallen leaves. Some are composted centrally and sold back. Most go to landfill, where they decompose without oxygen, releasing methane, a greenhouse gas roughly 27 times more potent than CO over a 100-year period. A resource treated as a problem, a solution treated as waste. What cannot be patented is not promoted. The leaf pile at the end of the garden has no patent. It generates no revenue. It requires no repeat purchase. It simply works. The same way it worked before anyone thought to sell an alternative. There is a pile of leaves somewhere nearby, maybe already bagged, maybe still on the ground. Leave the bags unopened. Find a shaded corner. Shred what's there and pile it up. Add water until it feels like a wrung-out sponge. Then walk away. In 6 months, what was considered yard waste will have become something garden centers charge $15 a bag for. The forest figured this out millions of years ago. It's been waiting for the rest of us to catch up.